Hey, this is Donnie Smith. This lesson, we're going to talk about dent repair. Now, before we just jump on this car and start repairing this dent, it's important for any repair job to wash it good with soap and water to remove all the contaminants, the waxes, and greases. We've already done that. We used a power washer to clean the car, and now we're using a wax and grease remover. And this is just to assure that all the waxes and greases, silicones, things like Armor Alls that may have been sprayed around the vehicle are removed, because this will eliminate many of the paint problems that arise during the repair process. This will also save on sandpaper because it won't be loading the sandpaper with these contaminants. Now we have the repair area clean and we can begin repairs. But before we do, we want to take a look at the damage and see what's wrong with it. See where the indirect damage is and direct damage, and determine what repair methods we're going to use to repair this damage. Now, when thinking about damage, it's a good idea to think about water, because if something hits water, it goes down, and when it goes down, it also pushes a wave up. So you've got the low area and you've got the high area. Well, think of damage the same way, because anytime there's a dent, there's going to be a low and there's going to be a high. So whenever you look at this damage, you can see that the center part of the dent is, of course, the direct damage. But then if you look up here on top, you can see the crown or eyebrow, some people call it. And you can see that that is pushed up. That whole top of the fender is actually pushed up. So if you try just to pull out on the low or push down on the high, it's not going to work. You've got to roll the metal. You've got to push down on that high while you're pushing out on the low. Now, when you go to determining what repair method you're going to use, you may have some different types of tools. You may have some high dollar tools, a stud welder gun, other dent repair systems. Well, really what you want to think of is what is the easiest method. If it's a hammer and dolly, if you have access to both sides, then use a hammer and dolly. Just because you got the highest piece of equipment does not mean you have to use it every time. Now, on this particular repair, if you drop the liner, you are able to get to the back side. So if you can get to the back side, this would definitely be a candidate for hammer and dolly. Filling back there to see if there's room to get a dolly, which I determined that there is. But another thing to remember is whenever you're repairing a dent, to reverse what happened, you want to work from the outside in. First in, last out. So whatever happened first in the accident, that's the last thing you want to repair. And also remember, when working with thin metal, it's thin. And you may be able to move some of this with your hands sometimes. It doesn't work every time, but I'm going to reach back there and keeping that in mind that I'm going to push down on that high, out on the low area, just my hands to rough this out. Now this ain't going to be perfect. It's just to rough out the damage to get the majority of the damage out. And I can see that there are still some highs and lows. I can feel them. And I know it's hard to see on video, and even if you're doing this yourself, it may be hard to see this sometimes. But I've got a trick that'll help you locate the lows. If you get a block with some 80 grit on it, you can cross sand the damaged area. And what this will do, the highs will immediately go to metal, of course, because they're high. But the lows, you'll see them where it doesn't sand it at all. And this will identify the lows. Now you can see the two low areas very easy. Now using the dolly, I'm going to reach behind this panel with the dolly and I'm going to push out on those low areas. But also while I'm pushing out, I'm going to have to remember where those high areas are so I can tap in on those. Remember, we always want to work in multiple directions. Whatever tool you're using, just remember to push out on the lows and in on the highs. And also, when using a dolly, there's different dollies, different shapes. You want the shape of the dolly to fit the contour of the part you're working on. If this dolly was completely flat, it wouldn't work well with this repair. Okay, now I am working on getting my dolly located on the back of the panel where I want it to go. And it may take a little bit of time to get it exactly where you want it, but I want it right on those low areas so that I can raise the low areas out. But also while I'm raising those lows area out, while I'm pushing on them with the dolly, I want to tap down on the high areas. And this will allow the low areas to come out while the high areas are tapped in. This is called the hammer off dolly technique because I'm not actually hammering on the dolly. The dolly's pushing out on the low, the hammer's pushing in on the highs. There is also a hammer on dolly, and that's where you are hitting the dolly, but anytime you hammer on dolly, that stretches the metal. And you want to save that for your final stages until you get the metal closer to where you want it. Then you can do some hammer on dolly for your final straightening. Okay, so I'm going to do a little bit more metal straightening, and then I'm going to use the block sander with some 80 grit on it to continue blocking that out to identify my highs and lows and see how the progress is coming. Now, whenever you're using your block sanding with 80 grit to identify highs and lows, it's always important to cross sand. By sanding just in one direction, you're not going to find all the highs and lows. And this goes for if you're doing this to identify highs and lows, or block sanding body filler. Cross sanding always levels much better. Now we're using this sander, and this basically takes the place of what we used to use with thicker metals, which is a body file. However, a body file will actually shave the top layer of the metal, which would help level it. But we don't want to do that with thinner metals. We want to use methods that does not remove any metal. So any method you can use that does not remove metal is always going to be a better choice with these thinner metals. Now I'm feeling of the damage with my hand, just seeing what all highs and lows that I feel. And a little tip for feeling damage, because you'll have to do that often, is to use the flat of your hand. Often I see fingertips used, but that is not going to catch the highs and lows. You're going to miss them. So always use the flat of your hand to be able to feel the damage well. Now, another trick that some technicians use is to use a rag. They claim that they can feel it better. It eliminates the different textures, and you put a rag over your hand and go over the damage and see if you can feel the highs and lows better. Try both ways. Whichever works best is the method for you to use. Now I feel a little bit of a high still here. I identified a high, so I'm just going to tap that down with the pick side of the hammer. I'm just basically lowering that high area. Now I'm going to re-block it, re-sand it with this 80 grit to make sure that it did remove the high area. And I feel of it, and I feel that that feels good. It's not perfect, but these thin metals, if you try to get them just perfect, try to metal finish them like they did the older metals, you're going to weaken, thin the metal. So you want to get it within 1/4 of an inch. Anywhere between 1/8 and 1/4 is what most body filler suppliers recommend. However, you don't want to exceed 1/4 of an inch. That's maximum after sanded. You don't want to exceed that amount. This dent is well under that. It's probably within 1/8 of an inch. Now, I'm noticing there's still a little bit of a crease down here, so I need to work that out. So I'm going to get a hammer and dolly in there. I'm going to raise in on the low area, and I'm going to tap this crease area in so that we can roll this metal back to where it's supposed to be. So as I'm pushing out with the dolly, I'm tapping in on that high area. Now I'm being real careful here not to hit the bumper cover. It'd been a better idea if I went ahead and dropped the bumper cover. I'll probably be blending into that. Or another trick you can do is put a couple of layers of masking tape. And I should have did that. I should have put masking tape or went ahead and dropped the bumper. Because the last thing you want to do is to sand into an adjacent panel, especially if it's not one you're blending, and cause damage that you have to repair. Now I'm still having problems with the low area right here, so I'm working on that. Now the problem with this area, it's a little harder to get to because there's a brace there. But I'm following the same techniques. I'm going to push out on that low area, and I'm tapping around in the high areas. Now when I hammer on dolly, you can hear that ping. It makes a different sound. And you can hammer on dolly some to help remove that damage. But again, remember that stretches the metal, and try to reduce the amount that you do that. A little bit of a high, I knock that down. Okay, I'm going to use my block with 80 grit to sand the damaged area some more to see if I got the damage worked out enough to apply the body filler. And I sand it and I fill of it, and there's still too much below there. So I'm going to need to go back in there one more time and use the dolly and hammer. I'm going to use the pick because there's a high here, and I'm pushing out on that low, and I'm going to hammer on dolly a little bit and sand it one more time to see if that has it. And that's what it takes. You know, it just takes doing a little bit, feeling of it, checking your progress until you have the damage where you want it. We got the metal straightened within 1/4 of an inch, really within an eighth, but 1/4 after sanded is the maximum amount of filler that most body filler manufacturers recommend. No more than 1/4 of an inch. That's the maximum amount. I know 3M, Evercoat, they all have that on their technical data sheets. So anything more than 1/4 of an inch, you really need to straighten it more than that. You need to get it straighter. And again, with these thinner metals, you don't want to try to work it because you're going to work hard in the metal. It'll become work hardened, thin, brittle, and may even crack on you. So it's almost impossible to get these thinner metals, do the metal finishing techniques like they used to do, where they'd work the metal and file it down and get it just perfect, prime it. And now there is one exception to that, and that's PDR, paintless dent repair. And that's a total different set of techniques than we went over in this video. This video is straightening metal like a body shop would perform. And again, remember, depending on the extent of damage, like a fender, you know, that would really go into consideration. Do we want to repair that or replace it? Now on a quarter panel, you know, those panels usually cost more, and also it's a weld-on panel. So it's going to take a lot of labor to replace that. So you can have a lot more damage in a quarter panel than you would a fender and still repair it. Many times in body shops and dealerships, if there's even a couple of hours of damage on fenders, they just go ahead and replace them, which is R&R, remove and replace. Anyway, I hope you learned some of this lesson. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next lesson.